Welcome to Choose the Nickel. I'm your host, George Bailey. My co-founder and technical support is the gorgeous Christina Bailey. This podcast is about giving kids financial freedom. We're interviewing fascinating people for their insights about how children learn to be financially savvy. Our guests come from diverse, sometimes conflicting schools of thought, and we love the opportunity to learn from them. We encourage all to weigh our guests' ideas on how to help children thrive, both financially and in general. We invite you to visit our website at www.choosethenickel.com, subscribe to our newsletter, and try out the things we are learning on the podcast. Our next episode features Charles Prinzen, otherwise known as Coach Chuck, founder of Me Inc. Now. Chuck has been a life coach mentoring young adults or students since 1973. He graduated from Long Beach Poly High School in 1974. His program is designed to motivate and inspire change. For Chuck, it is never too late for change. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Prinzen, a.k.a. Coach Chuck. Coach Chuck, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Something that really interested me in talking with you is that you do workshops with different school districts. Tell us a little bit about those workshops. What is the motivation behind what you're doing?
Well, we have several that I have put together. And yeah, we've been to LA Unified, Vacaville Unified. We have like the game of Monopoly. We have the man in the mirror. We have credit to credibility. We have several, and the motivation behind that is to allow the kids, even more so the Monopoly game, because we actually play the Monopoly game, to motivate them to know that change is possible. So we try to take away negatives in the environment that they're in and share positives, because positive actually feels good.
So you're basically trying to be a positive force for good in these children's lives, trying to make a difference. Who are your typical audiences?
Anywhere between middle school, high school, and just a little after high school. 14 to 19, 20.
Excellent. That's great. That's a time, when a kid is really asking a lot of questions, trying to figure things out. And if that kid has really been through a tough life up to that point, it's nice and reassuring to have someone like you step in and make a big difference for them. Do you have any stories of kids that you feel like you've really impacted?
I actually have had many. I don't know, I guess the one that sticks out the most is 2012 through 2014. I had an African-American young man on the basketball team because I was coaching JV basketball at Wilsey Wood High School. Something in this young man drew me to him. Now, he always wore different colored socks, like Tutti Frutti or whatever.
Yeah.
But something drew me to him. It's called the energy. It's the connection. And we started talking. And after that, we started talking a little bit more. And we got to really, really know each other. And he started calling me uncle because on the islands, it's uncle. So started calling me uncle. We got really close. And then I said, okay, look, I'm going to make you a deal. Your senior year, if you get a 2.5 or better, because I graduated with a 2.5, if you get a 2.5 or better, I'll take you to the islands. I will keep you there for 9 days. Anything that you want to do on the islands, and it's all on me. I mean, it wasn't easy because he had his ups and his downs, and towards the end of his senior year, we had to really, really grind on checking his grades. He ended up getting a 2.6.
Nice.
I kept my word, took him to the island, and to this day, he calls me uncle, and him and I are very, very, very close. And he's now a father, 2-year-old son. We sent him in the right direction. He had some issues, but he came out okay.
Well, it's so important for young men to have those mentors, particularly at a time in life when they could be doing so many other things, getting into trouble and whatnot. And I think that that's great. So tell me more about this Monopoly workshop. I'm intrigued in that one just because my main focus is financial literacy, teaching kids to be financially capable. And Monopoly is, I've heard, actually a pretty good tool for that.
Monopoly's been around a very, very long time. And I have this thought process or this vision that when Orson Welles, Roddenberry, Mark Twain, everything happens for a reason. And they write books or there's movies that tell stories that actually are real life because they've been given a gift, which is a vision. Well, Monopoly was made many, many years ago, and it's a game of life. It is life. And so what we do is we bring in 40-something kids into the library. We take all the library tables, we make them into a square. We put all the chairs around them. You got the 4 corners, which is go, jail, so ever. And we hand them cards when they come in, and we have them sit. Now, we mix the cards up, so they don't know where they're going to go, but they got to find on the board, the Monopoly board, And then in the center of this large square, we put 2 tables, which is chance and community chess.
So we're talking about like kind of a life-size board, Monopoly board that you've created in the classroom. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay.
And so then what we'll do is we'll bring in speakers. What is the SPCA for the animals? We'll bring in like a Navy recruiter for the ship. We'll bring in an auto mechanic or something, car sales, whatever for the car. And maybe for the thimble is somebody that does sewing or laundry, cleaners or whatever. And then they present to the kids a career-minded adventure of what they have done and to where they are successful in life. After they get done with their speaking time, then we're going to play the game. Okay, so now you're going to roll the dice first. You roll a 3. Where are you at on the board, George? Do you know?
Oh, man. I think it's actually, if I rolled a 3, starting from Go in Monopoly, it's been a while, man. Bringing back memories. I would say I'm one of the 2 purple properties.
Yes, you are actually on a Baltic, I believe.
Baltic. Oh, man. Okay. Hey, this is pretty good. That's been years, man.
Now, in life, where are you?
At 3. You mean 3 years old?
No. You live on Baltic. You just bought a house on Baltic.
So, so you're basically making it real in the sense that, I landed at Baltic. Well, I don't even live there yet. I have to make the choice. Am I going to throw down the money that I have in my bank or in my account? Or am I going to just sit there, pay someone else, whatever? But I take it at this point, I'm probably pretty wise to just buy it.
Right. So you have just purchased property in the ghetto. Because Baltic and Mediterranean are the lowest properties on that board.
Yeah.
So that whole strand, as you're moving down, then you go further, you got Oriental, the light blue. And then if you land on the corner, so that whole strand right there is a street. And you're in the hood. Now, most places when you're in the hood, on the next corner is sitting a jail.
Yeah. Got it.
You're visiting a family member, you're on probation or whatever. You're not in jail, but you're there and you're aware that the jail is there. Okay, so you come around the corner.
It is a presence. And as long as you're going in that direction, it's not like it's behind you.
No.
That's a great point. Okay, I follow.
So then you're moving along the board, you go around and you land on St. James, which is the orange. Okay, and if you like to purchase it. So now the next move that you make is you hit the corner. Now the next corner is free parking. What is that in today's life? Because if you play it the way that we play, anytime you have to pay a bill or something, it goes into the center of the kitty. First you start off with a $500 bill and then it bills. Okay, and sometimes it's like thousands of dollars. So what in today's life, if you land on free parking, is that? The lottery.
The lottery.
So you just won the lottery. You got some paper. You're feeling good. You're controlling the board. You're monopolizing, and then you roll again, and you land on Marvin Gardens, which is a yellow. So now you're in upper middle class.
Yeah.
Life is good. You got a job. Okay. You're working. You're in the military. You're doing very well. You're buying property. You make another move and you hit the next corner because you made a wrong move in your life and you're going where?
To jail.
The next corner is go to jail.
Hate that spot.
Yeah, you took a chance. You hired an attorney and he gave you a card that says you can get out of jail free. That's your attorney. So you get out, now you go back to jail. Now you're just visiting because they let you out of jail and you're getting ready to start all over again. Okay, so now you're going down the board and you land on boardwalk. And all this whole time we are discussing this with our kids. We want them to visualize life because that's exactly what it is. So now you land on Park Place or Boardwalk. You buy it because you know that's the most expensive property. So you got the high rise, you're a millionaire, whatever. Now the question is, right around the corner where you started, have you forgotten where you come from? Will you walk around the corner? Will you go around the block and go back to the hood? And will you give some of the money that you got now because you're living well? Will you remember where you came from? That's the question.
Awesome. I love the comparison. It's quite creative. I'm looking at a Monopoly board right now. As you were speaking, I brought one up and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that thing is. You know, I like this way of playing board games. And I've actually been trying to do this now with the game of life. With my kids. I interviewed a few people. They happened to both mention the game of life. So I'm like, I'm going to go out and get the game of life. We're going to play it with my kids. And I've noticed that the first couple times you're just getting the rules of the game down, right? Just so you understand it. But now I'm trying to kind of talk with them like, you know, did you notice that when you went on the fast track, it wasn't as good as doing this? You know, or did you notice that you can retrain midway through life? You could decide, you know, I'm going to do something different. The one thing about the game of life that makes me laugh a little bit is that they give you money for having children.
Yeah, and they're in the car with you. They got places in the car for your kids to go.
Yeah. Well, for me, I thought it was funny because I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not getting a lot of money for having kids. It's costing me a lot. Now it's worth it. I've got 4 and they're dear to my heart, and I'm not arguing against that. But the point is that when you take these games and you take the time to actually describe what's going on, it's not just this passive experience of like, oh, I'm going to play the game. I'm going to stick to the rules and I'm going to use a strategy. But there really are some great lessons in Monopoly. I thank you for taking the time to explain your process. I love that.
I mean, if you really look at it, so when you're getting the chance cards, when you land on chance, there's railroads along the way because you always have railroads somewhere in life. You're going to go over railroad tracks. Okay. So those cards that you pick up, you get paid, you have to pay a doctor's bill, you get married, you get a gift. Is that not what happens in this life? And so, when Mapawana, my baby, first saw me break this down in a workshop that we did we probably had like 70 kids in there. She went, wow. And I just, I had a vision. I jumped on it because life is a game and you have to learn how to play it.
I'm going to challenge you on one point, and I want to see what your response is. You compared free parking to the lottery. Mm-hmm. I'm not personally a huge fan of the lottery. I wonder if it's not just a way of taking from a lot of poor and giving to one poor person or one winner, and who knows whether they're poor or not. Do you think that is a good value to teach kids, or, how would you kind of counteract that?
First of all, I mean, it could be anything. You could get an inheritance.
Yes.
You could win the lottery. You come across a large sum of money.
It's a lucky break. It doesn't have to be the lottery then. Okay.
Yeah, you have a large sum of money in your hand. And the question is, have you learned how to, monopolize and make the best of your money in today's life by either buying property, investing, CDs, or whatever? Because that's the question. Now you have this large amount of money. What are you going to do it? Are you just going to blow it? Because if you blow it, you have whatever you started with, you're back to zero, and you've done nothing with that gift or the blessings that you got from that money.
Yeah, that I can completely get behind. I think that's a great idea. And the fact is that there are many people who at one point or another will inherit something or have some wonderful break in their lives. The question is, are they going to squander it? And sometimes, I feel like, do I do that sometimes? I'm sure that I have at times. Great analogy. Thank you very much. My next question for you is, tell me a little bit about where you grew up. What were you like as a kid?
I grew up in Long Beach, California, mostly. I went to 18 elementary schools, to 9 junior high schools.
Wow.
And it wasn't just in the Long Beach area because we went to like Burbank or some other areas, but the base of my life was in Long Beach. And then at 16 years old, I ran away because I was tired of the abusive home that I had lived in. Got adopted by a widowed Japanese lady with 2 daughters, and she put me through high school and actually was one of the biggest reasons why I was able to change my life. So, yeah, I grew up in Long Beach, spent most of my time going to the beach, having fun, playing games, playing sports, whatever.
Man, so Long Beach, down there. So I grew up closer to Santa Cruz. In Santa Cruz, it's funny because when I was young, you see all these images of like Baywatch, the show and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny to people in the Bay Area because our beach, when you go to Half Moon Bay and whatnot, is freezing cold water. You go in with a wetsuit or you go in and you just freeze, and it's kind of fun for a minute, and then you run back out and you're like, But Long Beach, are we talking about nice water or miserable water?
Okay, well, Long Beach back in the 60s and before never had a breakwater. They now have a breakwall that they put up in the early 70s, I believe, and there's not a whole lot of current that comes in. But before they put that breakwall up, we were down at 5th place, 8th place was the places that we hung out because that's where the waves would come in. And when the storms would come in, like, Baja area in the summertime, we would get some pretty good swells. So I did a lot of body surfing. I tried surfing one time. I never really cared for it. Did a lot of body surfing, spent a lot of time at the beach. But now they put up the breakwall. They have the oil rigs down there, which they have islands. They try to make it look pretty. But the bottom line is if you don't have circulation in your water, you got doo-doo water. So don't go there very much.
So I won't complain about Santa Cruz or Half Moon Bay anymore. No, okay. It's not that bad. It was great. I loved going to the beach. Okay. So what were some of your favorite experiences as a kid then? Granted, you had a lot of turmoil, a lot of instability. You were going from home to home. What were some of the positive things in your life?
Let's see, there was always the Belmont Plaza pool. And in those days, for 25 cents, you could spend 6 hours at the Belmont Plaza pool where they actually have water polo events. They have the Olympic trials there. They have platforms where they do diving. And so we spent a lot of time because, again, 25 cents got you a long way in 1968, 1969.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time that or out playing stickball or riding our bikes. And we even had yard work, or not yard work, but we'd go out there and do other people's yard work with our lawnmower. And oh man, do you remember the old edger? The old one with the wooden stick with the edger
on?
on?
Yeah, I do. Before the weed whacker, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And when you got crabgrass that's growing where you're trying to separate the grass from the concrete, yeah, that wasn't good. But no, we just hung out because I did have some issues. I spent a lot of time, as much time as I could, until I had to go home away from the house and just did what kids do.
So because things were a little bit turbulent at home, that kept you out. That kept you going and finding, recreational activities outside of that.
Yeah, that and jobs. I remember one of the very first jobs I ever had was the shopping news that they put on your door or on your car, and we got paid X amount, but then we kind of sort of cheated on that, and they would dump it off on the corner. We would have X amount, and we'd take it and throw it in the nearest dumpster and say, but then they caught on because they would drive by and see that they didn't have any shopping news anywhere, and kind of sort of got fired. But
yeah, I bet. Oh, man. Okay. But you did have some really cool job experiences. Now, one of the things that's very intriguing to me about that is that as a kid, you're often tempted to just kind of go waste time. And to a certain extent, it sounds like you did find ways to wiggle out of work, but you were willing to work,
yes,
on some of the projects. What was it that made you decide, I'm going to work rather than just getting into trouble and really rebelling?
Well, I did have some times where I had issues and I always found a way to make money or steal it. Okay. Yeah. But the bottom line was I used to get a lot of my clothes from the lost and found in the elementary schools or the Goodwill. And if I ever really wanted something nice, I had to have money. So I knew at a very young age how to make money, whether it was selling newspapers, press telegram out in front of a cafeteria on Sunday morning for a dime or a quarter. You got a percentage of that, or selling roses, piecework. I always found a way to have some money in my pocket because I'm not saying that I was the perfect child, because I wasn't. It felt better when you earned your money and you had money in your pocket.
Where do you think that motivation came from? Was there a person in your life that said, hey, you should go out and work a little bit, get some money? Was it friends and their examples?
I don't know if we want to get into that right now, but my stepdad worked. He was a hard worker, so I knew that he was a carpenter, and then he became a merchant marine. But you knew that in order to make money, you had to go out there and you had to work. Okay. And I actually had started my very first job where I made money as far as the Social Security is concerned at 13 years old at Jack in the Box, 85 cents an hour in 1969. And I did everything. I cooked. I did the cash register. I made the drinks and all that. So I actually was making, and I think the minimum wage at that time was maybe $1 an hour. But the nice gentleman decided that because I was a hustler. I'm a con man. I've always been a con man. There's good con and there's bad con. He liked my energy.
I was like, please don't make a confession on my show. It's too much pressure. I don't know what to do about that.
No, not at all.
This guy said he was a con man.
But it's a game, right? Again,
I get it. It's con. You could either say it's canard, convince, persuasion. There's a certain good aspect. I'll give you the benefit.
You ready for this one, George? I have a BS major in conology.
Yeah.
But no, so 85 cents an hour, and I got paid every week. And so I had money in my pocket to buy my own clothes.
Wow.
And I learned at a young age.
Wow. One of the things that you and I have talked about is that you, as a child, were a victim of abuse, and that this really shaped the way that you came to see yourself. Tell me a little bit about this and how you overcame this challenge in your life and how you've turned it into something very positive as an adult.
I was abused as a child. My mom divorced my real father, married my stepdad, and I was just around 2 years old when they did that. And he was an alcoholic and he was a very abusive person. So I actually got taken away from home at 3 because he had beaten me. They put me in a home, and 6 months later I came back. But what I learned through my life was, well, one, I learned how to accept the pain. But what I learned more than anything else is in order to pursue a positive, you had to go outside of what your environment was, which for me was a negative. But it wasn't till like my foster mom adopted me at 16 that I really truly understood the value of what a family was like, and it felt good. So at 18 years old, I was in a senior at Long Beach Poly, and for the 3 periods a day, I was across the street at an elementary school as a kindergarten teacher's aide. Because even at a young age, I wanted to give back because I know where I was at that young age. And if I could take those young men or young ladies or those children, because I kind of sort of pushed the ones that teachers have a tendency to do that. They'll push the ones that are a little slow, and they'll work on the ones that are going to go on to the first grade. Well, they kind of sort of pushed some kids over on me. And I looked at them as if they were me growing up through that time. And I gave them as much as I could, extra time. And some of them even surprisingly went on to the first grade. Well, that being said, I had counselors watching over me. I had principals from other schools that now became my principal at the high school. And my senior graduation at the Long Beach Arena, I got called up in the Long Beach Arena. I don't know if you've ever been down there now, but it holds thousands of people. That Waylon actually had put some whales on there. He painted on there. We were on the floor, and my marching partner hit me and said, he just called your name. Well, he had previously called up because Long Beach Poly is a home of scholars and champions.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he was calling up scholarship people going on for athletics. He was calling up scholarship for academics. And out of nowhere, he called my name. 2.5 GPA, 28 schools by my sophomore year. And he called me up in front of thousands of people and talked about me at the elementary school and where I wanted to go. I went to Long Beach City College for early childhood education. And that kind of sort of put me through. But what it really comes down to, George, is this. I started becoming abusive in my mid-20s, and I went and sought help because there's no way that I was going to be an abusive person from generational cycles. So I went and sought help, and the psychologist told me that I had traits. And when he told me that my stepdad, the abusiveness of my stepdad was coming out in me, I cut the line, I stopped that energy, and at that time is when I started thinking about doing more positives and getting rid of generational cycles that are passed down from our children to our children, from their parents or from their parents or from their parents. So that's what I'm doing now. I believe that if our kids at schools are able to understand the difference between negative and positive, they take that home. Maybe their parents didn't really understand the way that I didn't understand at 26 years old or why I was physically abusing. Then if they understand that, maybe they can make some change for a positive, and then they have a happy family because their kids are coming to school angry every day.
I commend you for learning that lesson and taking control of that. I think that that's a very difficult thing for people to do. And I really respect that you did that. I want to commend you for having the courage to take that step. I think that when you're in the thick of that type of trauma and you realize that you're about to repeat it, to jump on that opportunity to create change is a wonderful thing. I think that all of us in our own way, maybe not quite as dramatic, but I think that we all realize at some point that we're carrying with us some of the trauma or the pain or the hurt of our parents, and we have to seek ways to break the chain, start a new cycle. Because I already know, I look at my own kids and stuff like that, and sometimes I just feel like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Nothing quite that bad, but still, I think it's in our instincts to want to pass on a positive energy.
Mm-hmm. So that led me to, about 5 years ago, coming up with Me Inc. now, MEINCNOW. And people tell me, that INC is like an incorporation that should be at the end of a business? I said, yeah, but there's a meaning behind the Inc. It stands for me expressing I need change now. And now that we get you in our workshops, we start working with you. Now we're going to help you incorporate me. So you just turn it around and there's a sales pitch to everything, right? So that's the sales pitch. We want to learn how to incorporate me and change from negative energy and turn it into positives, those cycles.
Great. Well, another story that you had mentioned to me at one point was that you used to shine shoes. Is that right?
Yes, at 12 years old, I actually went out. I had my little shoe shine box, and in that box, it was actually a box that you could carry, but you could put your foot on it. And in that kind of sort of large box, you had all your polish, your rags, you had a little ammonia, you had stuff that you could burn. And I went out and I hustled bars. And so I had 13 bars in about a, 3/4 mile radius. And on the weekends, for 25 cents a shine, I would go to these bars and they let me in, and they liked it so much that I was that hustler kid. I wasn't very big. I was a skinny little kid. But here's this little kid with a shoe shine box, and he's trying to make money, and they invited me in, and they would not let any other shoe shine people in those bars. And then they fed me. They fed me pepperoni sticks, Cokes, whatever, and they just liked me. And I made a little bit of money, back in Long Beach in those days, they had a very big naval yard. So there was a lot of naval people that would go and, they're nice polished shoes. And I had an entrepreneurship at 12 years old.
You also had a monopoly on that market. I like this. I'm trying to think like, okay, I need, someone looking out for me to make sure I got a corner on whatever market I'm focused on as well. That's kind of nice. Right there. Yeah. Now, why would they do that? Was that something, were you pointing out to them like, hey, this other kid's like shining shoes at your place or something like that? Or they just, what was it that motivated them, do you think, to take that stand for you and to stick with your service?
Well, first of all, again, here's this skinny little kid that weighs probably not even 100 pounds at 12 years old and walks in there with this cute little smile. You always got to make sure you have that cute little smile. And I said, you just walk in there, it's either no soliciting, you're not going to be able to get in the door, or you get into the door, now you make your presence and you go, shoe shine? Would anybody like a shoe shine? And they might shoo you away, but if you keep being persistent and you go back again, then it's like, he just won't go away. Okay, let him in. Okay, he's cute. Okay, and they did. And it was pretty cool.
I like it when we reward our children for being persistent. There's a time when it just becomes nagging and badgering and whatnot. But then again, if we interpret it as persistence, I think that there are opportunities for teaching our children there. And certainly those adults taught you by allowing you, basically telling you, look, if you work at something hard enough, there are opportunities waiting for you. What a great example. What a great adventure.
And the coolest thing is they watched over me. I mean, they would have these guys that would come in and spend a little time in the bar, if you know what I mean. And I had this one guy come in, and he must have just got off of the oil refinery or something, and he had these really, really bad boots. He goes, oh, you want to shine my shoe? Yeah, I'll shine your shoe. Okay, shine them. So I'm sitting there working on them, and I'm done. And he looks at me and says, oh, there's still stuff on him. So I'm working on it because, you want to take care of your customers because you want repeated business. So I'm working on them, and finally, the bar manager or people around that were watching me busting my tail taking care of these shoes, I ended up getting $5 out of that guy, and I think he got 86 out of the bar. I can't remember, but it was cool that they watched over me because they know that I was trying to make money.
Yeah. Well, the greatest learning for kids, I believe, happens when there are adults really present, being an example and mentoring, protecting, things like that. So you want to create that type of an environment in which that happens, which brings me back to your coaching classes. I think that creates an awesome opportunity for kids to know that there are adults watching out for them, trying to train them, prepare them.
Yeah, well, they are the next generation.
Yep. One other question I want to go back to, a story that I want to revisit, is that you had a woman take you in to her family when you were 16. What were the things that she did that helped you to heal?
Love. When my mom brought me in, well, see, in the beginning, I was just going to her oldest daughter. We were boyfriend and girlfriend, but she was a mentor to me, and I looked up to her. So I was able to go to her house, tell her my stories, and she listened to me, and she comforted me. And so when I did run away, that's the first place I went. And because she had told Mom about where I came from, Mom adopted me. And she would wake up every morning. She would make me my breakfast, eggs, toast, the toaster, hash browns. And then every day she would make me a bagged lunch with 2 onion roll sandwiches with ham, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, and all that. And it was so much I couldn't eat it. And so I would sell one. No, I would sell
Yeah.
one of those sandwiches every day, and I had buyers through the whole week because those were good sandwiches. You know what? Mom knew that I was selling those sandwiches, and she kept making them for me. So not only did she watch over me, she got me clothes. I always had a nice wardrobe. That family showed me more than anything else what love and a family was all about. Because all the love that I had before was misguided. You would say I love you, but then other things would happen. So That was one of the biggest things that I learned how to open up and actually feel my heart and love things.
Any advice for parents who are raising children who have been subject to abuse? In this case, I'm usually talking about foster parents coming in or coming in later at some point, because I assume that, the abuse would be at the hands of the actual parents.
Yes and no. I mean, we do have some, and it's unfortunate that some of our foster or adopted parents use the system to become better. But in most cases, if they had a past like that, they're kind of sort of in check. They have to be in check because it's part of the system. Is check yourself and make sure that when you bring the young men or young women, the children into your life, that you're really ready to open up to them and give them a difference. Because I'm actually part of a foster movement. The aging out process is the hardest for kids that are aging out. But if you have a home, if you have something that you want to open up to other children, then share with them things that you know they were lacking in their life. That's pretty much what my mom did to me, lacking in their life, and give them that so now they can feel it and they can see it, and it becomes a better understanding of what was the ugly to what is the new. It's like a new slate. You're giving them an opportunity to have a new slate in their life and feel how beautiful it is, and hopefully set the base, the foundation for them to move on and raise children themselves, make that change.
What is your favorite charitable organization or cause?
I actually have two. One is Cat Dawn. It's a New Dawn 501c3 out of Salt Lake City, and she has opened up to domestic violence and recovering addicts. So the recovering addicts, because she was an addict, they recover. They are in a domestic violence environment, and she has opened up a home. She actually is breaking ground for a new home for these domestic violent women and their children to come into. So it's a New Dawn 501c3. And the other one is Chemo Buddies out of Las Vegas. And that is Chemo Buddies because my fiance that reunited with me is a 2-time cancer survivor. And
wow.
once you're there, it's so Chemo Buddies and a New Dawn 501c3.
Tell me a little bit about a New Dawn in terms of what types of life changes have you seen through that nonprofit?
Wow. I just came back from Salt Lake City 2 weeks ago where she did a fundraiser, and it was a really, really successful. On Saturday, they brought in probably 10, 11 amazing speakers, and a lot of them were either recovering addicts or they were speakers that had problems with negativity in their life that made a difference to them. And I think what the biggest accomplishment that they did on that day was they opened up their heart, and they were raw and they were real, because too many times in this life, everybody has a story, whether it's a positive story or negative. Everybody has one. If it's a negative one, people don't want to hear it. They kind of sort of push each other. Everybody has their own stories. That weekend, that Saturday, it was raw. It was real. And some of the speakers that actually have been to Washington, D.C., they are leaders. When they got to a certain time in their life, when they were telling their story, they got choked up because it's something that's inside you that's never going to go away. You kind of sort of hide it. But the New Dawn is there for us to be able to feel comfortable letting that poison out, letting that negative energy out, and expressing it to others so that they can learn how to release it also. And I think that was the biggest, not the ball, not the getting all dressed up. It was allowing the energy of people to know it's okay to release the poison so that other people could hear the raw, because they might be hiding it in there and they're dealing with that anger or that ugly that they can get rid of if they choose to, if they just want to be real, be raw. And it was beautiful.
What's interesting to me about that one is that typically we draw a lot of attention to the abused and the need that they have for healing. But yes, there is a lot of need for the abuser, the addict, as you call it, to have some healing as well. And you want to hope for that. You want to hope that they can seek redemption and forgiveness. That's great. What about the chemo buddies? What types of activities are they doing in that particular nonprofit?
Well, actually, Tamara Hunter is the founder of it. And you know what? The biggest thing for them is nobody, and this is why I like it so much, nobody left behind. Because I remember when Mapawana went through the cancer center, when she found out she had cancer, we went through the cancer center for first radiation or chemo treatments. That when we walked through that center, we looked up and it said cancer, and we walked through those doors, we knew that we would never be the same. We now walked into an environment of family. And so Tamara Hunter pretty much has the same thing. For there are people out there that are battling with this. They need somebody. They need a buddy. They need somebody to help them through this journey and be family to them, that they can be comfortable and know that whatever happens in this journey, the cancer journey, whatever happens, whether it's good or bad, that they have somebody that they can fall back on. And so because I went through this with my fiance, with my baby, I know what it's like, 2-time cancer survivor. I am really strong on supporting that cause.
A lot of people doing a lot of great work. Coach Chuck, I want to thank you for being on the show.
Look, I want to thank you for allowing me to be on this show, because it's all about spreading the love. It's all about spreading that positive energy. And if somebody that hears this was sitting back and contemplating, do I? No, I can't. I don't want to. No. And they hear this and it helps them open that door, open their heart up and walk through and feel that positive energy, because it feels good. It puts a smile on your face. If we can help one, then that might lead to another and another. And I'm honored. I'm so thankful that you allowed me to come on the show.
Absolutely. Everybody else, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the interview and found useful ideas about things you can do with your kids. Be sure to check the show notes at www.choosethenickel.com for links to names, books, and other resources we discussed in today's show. Also, please subscribe to our newsletter and visit our contact page where you can give us feedback. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube, and you can follow Choose the Nickel on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We invite you to share Choose the Nickel with your friends and join us in our quest to teach kids financial freedom.